Hi again, everyone. Gary Digital Williams here on the Boxing on the Beltway Podcast Network. And the Boxing on the Beltway Podcast Network can be heard on Spreaker.com, iHeartRadio, and on Stitcher, TuneIn. We're on Spotify. We're on Castbox. We're on Podcast Addict. And we're on Google Podcasts. So anyway, you can find a podcast network, you can probably find the Boxing on the Beltway Podcast Network. You can also call and talk to Alexa and say, Alexa, please play Boxing Along the Beltway. It'll come up. And we're on our YouTube channel, which is Gary Williams. We're on Twitter at Digital25. And we're also on the Boxing on the Beltway Podcast Network on Facebook. So it was interesting because going into this week, I didn't think I had a lot to talk about. And just in the last, really, 48 hours, we ended up having a lot to talk about. So we have a pretty good schedule of comments to talk about this week. We're going to talk about a couple of big wins for a couple of Beltway boxers. Two of them having the same name, same last name. We're going to talk about the updates to the February schedule. And there are a lot of them. There's some shows that have been taken off the schedule. Some bouts have been added on to, possibly added on to the schedule. So there's a lot to talk about in the schedule situation. And we're going to pay tribute to two men who passed away really within, I think, a day of each other, really. That really touched me very much. One did more personally than the other. But one was a big man in professional wrestling. The other was, of course, a big man in pro boxing. And I don't really think he knew how big he was. But he was had a big presence in professional boxing. And we'll talk about that as well. The Boxing on the Beltway Podcast Network, brought to you as always by Real-Time Pain Relief. From boxers to ballerinas, for shoulder pain and muscle strain, everything between. Boxing Along the Beltway recommends Real-Time Pain Relief, the natural, plant-based, safe, fast, and effective ointment. You go to freepainoffer.com, buy $10 worth of Real-Time Pain Relief. You get a free $10 tube of Real-Time Pain Relief, now endorsed by Big George Foreman. So try his knockout plan for Real-Time Pain Relief. Rub it on. The pain is gone in real time. And may I just say that this past week, my wife has been having some real difficulties with shoulder pain, tension pain. Has been going through a lot. And I've been putting on real time. So it is working for her. She's just trying to check herself at a physician. But real time has really been staving off the pain for a number of days now. So she's going to keep working with that as well. Also, we're brought to you by DeborahSpears.com. Great weight loss tips, great jewelry, and great training methods, all at Deborah, Debra Spears.com. Well, the two men who won big wins this past weekend both have the last name of Rahman. They are Sharif and Hasim Jr. Rahman Jr., of course, the sons of the former undisputed heavyweight champion Hasim Rahman Sr. And they both had big wins over the weekend. On Saturday, February 6th, at the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Sharif C3 Rahman, the super middleweight from Baltimore, he scored a third-round TKO over Vladimir Jacinto of Fresno, California, by way of Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Now, Rahman, I saw a little bit of footage on his bout. He just landed at will against Jacinto in the third round, especially. He landed two overhead rights that dropped Jacinto in the third round, and then the battering just kept going until the referee ended up stopping the contest. There was no official word on the time of the stoppage, but it was definitely a dominant performance by Sharif Rahman, who remains undefeated at 4-0 with 3 KOs. Jacinto continues his winless streak. He's now 0-3. Now, there was another Beltway boxer on that card. It was Seat Pleasant, Maryland super featherweight James Too Slick Early. He lost a 6-round unanimous decision to undefeated Rasheem Jefferson of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. There was no word on the scorecards. They didn't get a lot of technical information about this card. It was streamed live on Fight TV, but I didn't get a chance to see it there. But no word on the scorecards this bout. But Early falls to 5-7, while Jefferson rises to 4-0. Neither man has a knockout in his career thus far. So it's kind of a split night for Beltway boxers on that card. Meanwhile, Sharif's brother, Hasim Gold-Blooded Rahman Jr., he delivered a second-round knockout to Alejandro de la Torre of Valle Hermoso, Tamaulipas, Mexico. That was on Friday, February the 5th, at the Salon de Eventos in Matamoros, Mexico. No word there on the time of the knockout. Now, this is the second time that Rahman Jr. defeated De La Torre. Rahman Jr. won a 4-round unanimous decision in their last outing almost a year ago in the same location, Matamoros, Mexico. So Rahman definitely improved over his first win. He didn't win a bout by unanimous decision, but this time he scored the knockout in the second round. Rahman remains undefeated as well. He's 10-0, 5 KOs, while De La Torre falls to 2-10, both his wins coming by KO. So again, happy wins and good wins for the Rahman household. And I know Hasim Sr., has to be very, very proud. Congratulations to the Rahman brothers. Meanwhile, on January the 30th, we didn't get a chance to talk about this bout here last week, but two Baltimore-based boxers won by knockouts on Saturday, January 30th at the Crown Reef Resort in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Super featherweight Mia Killaby Ellis, she needed just 46 seconds to knock out Myasia Oglesby of North Carolina. Ellis hit Oglesby with a right hand to the head, and I love this shot. I saw the footage on this. Ellis hit Oglesby with a right hand to the head. Then she quickly followed up with a right-left combination to the body and dropped Oglesby to the canvas. Oh, it was beautiful to look at. It really was a gorgeous shot. And Oglesby could not recover from it. I'm not surprised. But it was a great shot, great series of punches by Mia Killaby Ellis. She's now 2-0, both for wins coming in the first round by knockout. Oglesby remains winless at 0-8, and she has been knocked out in every contest she's been in. So a great win for Mia Ellis. Meanwhile, Laurel Maryland's Stacy Selby trains in Baltimore. He made a successful pro debut, stopping John St. Fard of Wilson, North Carolina, by way of Haiti in the second round. Selby used a mixture of head and body shots to send Fard to the canvas 3 times before the bout was stopped. No official word on the time of that stoppage as well. Fard is now 0-3. Gotta give thanks to my good buddy Lori Reed, who was at the Crown Reef Resort and was doing Facebook Live and showed footage of both Mia Ellis and Stacy Selby's bouts. So kudos to her, and it helped me a lot. No question about that. So thank you, Lori. Appreciate that. Once again, Selby wins his pro debut, and Fard is now 0-3. So a big win for both Mia Ellis and Stacy Selby. Now let's look at the February schedule once again. A lot of changes. First of all, the card that was at the Washington County Fairgrounds in Washington, Pennsylvania on Saturday, February 6th. Apparently, there were no Beltway boxers ended up being on that card. It was scheduled to be 3 that was supposed to be on the card. Nathaniel Lee, ASAP Davis, Jay Stansel III, and Dwayne Thompson II. Nathaniel Davis is from Lusby, Maryland. Stansel is from Clinton, Maryland. And Dwayne Thompson II is from Glen Burnie, Maryland. He was scheduled to take on a man by the name of Leonidas Fulks, who's from Winchester, Virginia, by way of Baltimore. But apparently none of those bouts were on this card, and I tried to reach out to my good friend Derek Gianta, who was the promoter of the card, and he never got back to me. I know he was probably busy, so he couldn't get back to me on that. But apparently no Beltway boxers were on that card, so that card went on without them. Now, we're also hearing that on Friday, February 12th, in Orlando, Florida, Dark Menace Tierra Brown, the female super featherweight who lived in D.C. and now back home in Fort Myers, Florida. She was scheduled to take on Vanessa Bradford on this card from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Apparently that bout will not take place on that February the 12th card. So that's one update there. Now, on Saturday, February 13th at the MGM Grand Hotel Conference Center in Las Vegas, Nevada, Alexandria, Virginia middleweight Troy Isley will make his pro debut. He's still on this card, and he's got an opponent now. His name is Bryant Costello. Bryant Costello is out of Liberty, New York. He is 1-1 with 1 KO, and one of his loss so far, came to our very own Jonathan Ryan, the Lion King Burrs, I should say. That was on October 27th at Rosecroft Raceway. He lost. Burrs won a 4-round unanimous decision in that bout. So, again, he's looking to get, his last win after that, back in September of 2019, he did win a 3rd-round TKO over Anthony Everett on that card in Catskill, New York. So, this will be Troy Isley's debut opponent on the card that'll be on Saturday, February 13th at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Nevada. And this is on the card that features Joe Smith Jr. going after the vacant WBO light heavyweight title against Maxim Vlasov. And that card will be on ESPN. No word on whether or not Troy Isley will make that contest. I doubt it, unless there was so many knockouts in the card. But I doubt if Troy Isley will make the telecast. But they'll be on that Joe Smith Maxime Vlasov card on Saturday, February 13th at the MGM Grand Bubble Conference Center in Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, some other changes on the schedule. Actually, this is an addition. On Saturday, February 20th at the Escape Ballroom in Greenville, South Carolina. We have two boxes on that card so far. Malik King Warren against the debuting Deron Merriweather. And Manzaboy, the Punisher Condi out of Laurel, Maryland. He's going to be on that card as well. And also we're hearing that Scott Cujo Sigmund, who just can't seem to stay away apparently. He's still going, which is fine. He's quite a character in this business. He's scheduled to be on this card in an 8-round bout. That's on Saturday, February 20th, Saturday, February 20th at the Escape Ballroom in Greenville, South Carolina. The Saturday, February the 27th card that's scheduled to be at the Shrine Exhibition Center in Los Angeles, California. According to BoxRec, that card is off, apparently, because there's no listing on it. I just checked it before we went on the air. There's no listing on that card. So the card was scheduled to feature Alantes Fox, an 8-round bout against Jose Armando Toro Resendiz of Compostela, Nayarit, Mexico. But apparently that bout will not take place Saturday, February 27th at the Shrine Exhibition Center in Los Angeles, California. The bout will not take place. Now, on Friday, February 26th, can't forget about this. Baltimore, Maryland super featherweight Glenn DeZern. He's scheduled to be on a card at the Hits 55 club in Covington, Kentucky. And that has kind of been a second home for DeZern. He's won, I believe, his last two bouts at Hits 55. So he's scheduled to be on the card there on Friday, February 26th. Then on Saturday, February 27th at the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida. We already know that Ashton Lagoon Sykes of the Columbia, Maryland super middleweight, he'll go up against undefeated Alexis Espino in Las Vegas, Nevada. Against Sykes 5-3, trying to extend a 3-bout winning streak in that bout. Espino is 6-0, 4 KOs. Now, we are also hearing, and this isn't definite yet, that according to BoxRec, this bout is pending approval. So it's not definite yet. But this may be the night that Keyshawn Davis out of Alexandria by way of Norfolk, Virginia, will make his pro debut, possibly on this card. He's scheduled to take on Lester Brown of Nassau in the Bahamas. Now, this is interesting. If it goes through, it's a very interesting opponent. And it'd be interesting to see because Lester Brown has a record of 4 wins, 2 losses, and 3 draws with 1 knockout. He has already been at the 8-round level. He fought an 8-round bout back in July of 2019. He lost that bout by 8-round split decision. He's fought a 6-round bout. His last bout was a third-round TKO loss to Manuel Correa in Miami, Florida. So this is a very experienced opponent for Keyshawn Davis. I know Keyshawn Davis is talented. There's no question about that. But will they allow that bout to take place? We'll see what happens there. But Keyshawn Davis is scheduled to be on this card February 27th. This is a big card because this is the card that Canelo Alvarez is scheduled to defend his WBC and WBA super middleweight championships against Avni Yildirim on this card. And the card is right now scheduled to be televised, on Sky Box Office. Will now be televised in America? I don't know. We'll see what happens. Keyshawn Davis scheduled to be on this card pending his bout approval. Another bout pending approval is a heavyweight bout between Jerry Slug Forrest of Newport News, Virginia, taking on Zili Zhang of China. Now, Zhang is undefeated 22-0. Jerry Forrest 26-4. And Zhang, I believe, fought on a card back in 2016 at the DC Army. One of those 4 cards that we had during the month of March and April at the DC Army. I know Zhang was on one of those cards. So we'll see what happens there. But that bout is also pending approval. So that's on Saturday, February 27th at the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida. So that's what we'll see there. Hopefully, Keyshawn Davis and Jerry Forrest will be on this card. So that's the February schedule. Again, a lot of changes, and we will keep you abreast as the weeks go on. Now, 2 tributes today. I'm going to start with the wrestling tribute first because, again, we have a boxing tribute to give out as well. There weren't as many better African-American heels. Now, African-Americans in wrestling normally play the good guy role, like Rocky Johnson, Tony Atlas for the most part. Also, SD Special Livy Jones. I don't know if he ever played a bad guy. Most of Junkyard Dog, although he did play heel for a little bit, very early in his career. But very few of them make the majority of the career as a heel. There was a bad guy. Ernie Ladd did it for a good portion of his career. Many African Americans kind of shuttled back and forth between heel and face. The late Pistol Pez Watley, he started off as a face, then became Shaska Watley as a heel. He went to another territory, Continental Wrestling in Alabama. He changed his whole persona. He was known as Willie B. Hurt back in those days. But they very rarely stay heel for a long period of time. One of the few that did was a man who passed away this past week by the name of Butch Reed. Now, Butch Reed was one of the better heels. He did turn face at some points earlier in his career, especially when he was in the Mid-South territory in Louisiana and that territory there in Arkansas and Oklahoma. But he primarily was a bad guy, best known as a bad guy. He had his most success as a bad guy. He did it well. In the Mid-South, he did turn on the Junkyard Dog, and they had a huge feud in the Mid-South Louisiana territory there. When he came to WWE for the first time, actually for the only time, he bleached his hair blonde, and he went by the nickname of the Natural Butch Reed. And that may have been to do something that they didn't do in Mid-South. They had 2 guys, because originally his nickname was Hacksaw Butch Reed. He used to play professional football for a very short time with Kansas City, and he was known as Hacksaw. Well, of course, in Mid-South, they had another Hacksaw by the name of Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And there was the Battle of the Hacksaws in Mid-South, and then they would team up occasionally as well. WWE, I guess, didn't want to get into that. So what they did was they changed Reed's whole persona, made him bleach his hair blonde, and he had a manager by the name of Dr. Styles Slick. And they were, relatively successful. He didn't win any championships or anything like that. What was unique for me, and I really didn't think about it until a couple of years ago, WrestleMania 3 in 1987, March of 1987, one of the bouts on that card was Butch Reed battling the Birdman, Coco Beware, with the manager Slick. 3 African Americans in a prominent role on a card. That was rare. Even in 1987, that was rare. And it was, looking back on that, and I've seen the card many times now, but looking back on it, it was cool. It was no question. It was cool to see. It really was. So that was kind of nice. Reed would move on to WCW at that time, World Championship Wrestling. They had transitioned from NWA. And in one of the worst kept secrets, maybe in wrestling history, Butch Reed would enter into a storyline with the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott Steiner, especially Rick Steiner in this particular case, because Rick Steiner was infatuated with a girl by the name of Robin Green. Robin Green was a fan, and he was just infatuated with him. And then after courting her, she would finally invite Rick Steiner into a limousine where he would get beaten up by 2 guys who would be known as Doom. And Robin Green became a character known as Woman. Now, Robin Green, Woman, was really Nancy Sullivan Benoit, the late Nancy Sullivan Benoit. And she would play this character called Doom, and Doom would be two masked black wrestlers. Well, given the body shape of the black wrestlers, it fooled absolutely nobody. We all know who they were. Now, bear in mind, the other partner in this tag team with Butch Reed was Ron Simmons. And of course, Ron Simmons had been a very popular wrestler most early part of his career at that time. So, given their body shapes, they were really built guys. I mean, Butch Reed had an incredible physique, no question about it. Ron Simmons wasn't that far behind. And of course, they both came from football. Ron Simmons was a huge star at Florida State University, had his jersey retired and all that. But it fooled absolutely nobody. It really did. So there was a bout between the Steiners and Doom, where if Doom lost, they had to take off their mask. Well, Doom did lose the bout, and they had to take off the mask. And to the surprise of absolutely nobody, it was indeed Butch Reed and Ron Simmons. It was really crazy. But they survived the tag team. And actually, Nancy Benoit, a woman, was written out of the storyline. And Theodore Teddy Long, was brought into the storyline. So the unmasked Doom would face the Steiners again, this time at a pay-per-view show that happened right here in D.C., Washington, D.C., called Capital Combat 90. Wasn't one of the better pay-per-views ever. In fact, it was one of the worst, in all honesty. Primarily because it was a tie-in to the return of RoboCop. And RoboCop made an appearance in the DC Armory for that pay-per-view. It was horrible. It was just horrible. One of the better moments of that pay-per-view was Doom defeating the Steiners to win the WCW World Tag Team titles. And they were a good tag team, really were a good tag team. They eventually broke up, and the two would fight each other. Simmons and Reed would fight each other, but it was a really good tag team while it lasted. Reed did some independence after that, but really his career was kind of over after his. One other thing he did do. I'm sorry, he did do this. He was part of when the Four Horsemen broke up, when Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson went to WWE, and shortly after that, James J. Dillon followed them as an agent for the WWE. Butch Reed would be partnered with Ric Flair and Barry Windham, and their contracts would be sold by J.J. Dillon to something called the Yamazaki Corporation. Not a good move. And the head of that Yamazaki Corporation, and think about the names and figure them out, was the great trainer Hiro Matsuda. And Butch Reed was a part of that, along with Michael PSAs and, of course, Ric Flair and Barry Windham. That didn't go very well. And you could see then that WCW was just going and falling by the wayside very quickly. So it was pretty terrible. That was his last really big thing for Butch Reed. Didn't do much. He fought on the independents a little bit, but his career was pretty much over by then. But he was definitely a fixture at some of the fan fests, and really a really good heel wrestler, one of the better African-American heel wrestlers we ever had. So we lost Butch Reed. He had a number of heart attacks, and that led to his passing away at the age of 66 years old. So tribute to Hacksaw Butch Reed, the natural Butch Reed, great wrestling name in the business. And then we got word that the man that provided me with one of my favorite boxing moments and one of the more infamous boxing moments in my career passed away. He had fought a long battle with cancer, number of cancers. I know prostate was one of them, but I think he had more than one. And that's, of course, the heavyweight champion of the world, Olympic gold medalist, Leon Spinks. Now, I have told the story of the night Leon Spinks came to town. So I'm not going to go into that story this time. I told it on the air. You can go back and listen to it in one of our tribute podcasts. I think we did it a year ago. But Um, what I wanted to focus on as far as his tribute was for Leon Spinks. And of course, we all know his great credentials. He won an Olympic gold medal on perhaps the greatest United States Olympic boxing team in history with Sugar Ray Leonard, his brother Michael Spinks, and Howard Davis Jr., and so many others on that team. We had 3 Beltway boxers on that team: Sugar Ray Leonard, Louis Heidi Curtis, and Sergeant Charles Mooney, who won a silver medal in the Olympics in 1976. But I really, between Spinks winning the Olympic gold medal and then winning the heavyweight championship of the world in his 8th pro fight, I could be wrong. I really could be wrong. But I really don't think Leon Spinks really knew how big his name would be and how his name carried on throughout his career and after his career. He was quite a character. No question about that. He was great for the business. I mean, when he beat Ali in February of 1978, he gave us an injection of realness. You know, he was happy to be in that situation. He would say, Ali's still the greatest, but I'm the latest. And it's just a shame that his career ended up not panning out the way it was supposed to be. I mean, he would lose the belt back to Ali in September of that very same year, almost 7 months to the day. 7 months. It was on February 15th when he won the title. He lost the title on September 15th. So yeah, it was 7 months to the day. He got one more shot against Larry Holmes. I remember Larry Holmes tweeted this week that Spinks gave him a very tough fight. But it just means he had issues. He had issues outside the ring, of course. But his in-ring didn't pan out. In fact, I don't think he had another. I think he had maybe one more win after he lost to Ali. But his name still carried. His image still carried. I mean, people remember the gap tooth and Leon No Teeth Spinks. I mean, we remember all of that. And again, in 1994, when he came here to Washington, D.C. in October, that was an event. And Leon Spinks made it an event. People wanted to see Leon Spinks. It was amazing. That was a great card. I've talked about the card. It was a great card. Daryl Tyson, Shambe Mitchell, among the notables on that card. But late Gary Rock Payne was on that card as well. But people were there to see Leon Spinks. And it was amazing. I've read some information about that card after the fact. The one thing I will say is that Leon Spinks is the first man first world heavyweight champion to lose to a fighter make his pro debut. Now, the promoter of that card, Charles Farrell, he lied about John Carlo, the opponent's record. And I should have known that, and I didn't back then. I've talked about that. But people were there to see Leon Spinks. There were over 5,000 people that came to see Leon Spinks, one of the best writers in the history of sports writing. Covered that card. William Gilday from the Washington Post. He was there. And that's because of the name and the persona known as Leon Spinks. And ironically, I just finished my tribute to Butch Reed. Leon Spinks did some wrestling. And I really tell you, I didn't know this until I read about it today. I read about it this week, I should say. Leon Spinks wrestled Antonio Inoki, much like Ali did many years ago. And much like Ali did, the bout was a disaster, according to great wrestling writer Dave Meltzer. It was a disaster. He wrestled a couple times. He was in a sort of full contact situation. I mean, his name carried weight. And I think a lot of people forgot about that. And of course, he was out of the limelight because of sickness, illness. His sons both boxed. Leon Spinks III and more notably Corey Spinks, who was a world champion one time. It was a very, very interesting career for Leon Spinks, and it's just sad because when he was on his game and part of the real landscape of boxing, he brought a lot of smiles. He really did. He was a happy-go-lucky guy, and even in his losses, he would still have a positive attitude, and we're going to miss that. And it's going to be very, very difficult because really one of the really good people in the boxing business, Leon Spinks, Neon Leon, as Michael Marley called him, he's passed away. He had number of cancers, and he passed away at the age of 67. So that's our tributes to Hacksaw Butch Reed and the legendary Leon Spinks. And that'll do it for another edition of the Boxing on Beltway Podcast Network. Once again, the Boxing on Beltway Podcast Network brought to you by Real Time Pain Relief. You go to freepainoffer.com, buy $10 worth of Real Time Pain Relief. You get a free $10 tube of Real Time Pain Relief. Now endorsed by Big George Foreman. Try his knockout plan for Real Time Pain Relief. Rub it on. The pain is gone in real time. And by DeborahSpears.com. Great weight loss tips, great jewelry, great training methods at Deborah, Debra Spears.com. Thanks for joining us. My name is Gary Digital Williams. We thank you so much for supporting the Boxing on Beltway Podcast Network. We look forward to seeing you again in our next podcast. Till then, thanks for joining us. Always remember, keep supporting the best boxing in the world. The boxing along the Beltway. Thanks for listening. Take care.